Things Kid Zone!
Welcome back on the bus, kids. Today we're going to be singing A Wise Man Built His House Upon the Rock.
The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. And the rains came a-tumbling down. The rains came down as the floods came up. The rains came down as the floods came up. The rains came down as the floods came up. And the house on the rock stood firm. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. And the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down as the floods came up. The rains came down as the floods came up. The rains came down as the floods came up. And the house on the rock was flat.
In the harvest field now ripen, there's a work for all to do. Hark, the voice of God is calling to the harvest, calling you. In the mad rush of the Broadway, in the hurry and the strife, tell of Jesus' love and mercy. Give to them the word of life. Little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth nor fame. There's a crown and you can win it if you go in Jesus' name.
Does the place you're called to labor seem too small and little known? It is great if God is in it, and He'll not forsake His own. Are you laid aside from service, body worn from toil and care? You can still be in the battle, in the sacred place of prayer. Little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth nor fame. There's a crown and you can win it if you go in Jesus' name. When the conflict here has ended and no race on earth is run, He will say, if we are faithful, welcome home, my child, well done. Little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth nor fame. There
Well, hello everybody. Glad you could be back with us again. I am Jakob. Glad again that you could be here. Looking forward to what we're going to be looking at today. So if you have a Bible, I would go ahead and suggest and recommend that you turn to Daniel chapter 4. We're going to be starting in verse 1, but just by way of introduction, we're going to be looking a little bit at a guy by the name of Nebuchadnezzar. And we're not going to look at everything about him today. Unfortunately, that would take quite a while, although we are going to be trying to look at him a little bit more in some of the weeks to come. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and start in Daniel chapter 4, verse 1, and see what we have to find here. So it says, Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But then, at the last, Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the vision of my dream that I have seen in the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of mine head in my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and his height thereof was great. The tree was great and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto the heavens, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowl of the heavens dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and an holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, Hew down the tree and cut off his branches. Shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from under his branches. Nevertheless, the stump of his roots leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand of the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. So we've got King Nebuchadnezzar here. He had this strange dream, and if you know anything about the book of Daniel, you've seen this before. He has kind of this habit of having these weird, odd, unique dreams. And here again, he's having another one. He was at rest in his palace, maybe he went to bed for the night, maybe he was just kicking back for a little bit, taking a nap. But he had this dream, and it was an odd dream. And so he has all his wise men come in, the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers. Some of them were a little bit more scientific than others. Some of them were more kind of witchcrafty type stuff that you don't want to mess with. But none of them could make known the interpretation to him. So at last, his favorite guy, his favorite magician, the guy that he put in charge of all the magicians, Daniel, who he called Belteshazzar, but who we know is Daniel, came in before him. And Nebuchadnezzar knew that God had placed in him a spirit that could interpret dreams. And so he told Daniel, it's like, okay, well, here's my dream. You need to interpret it, because he knew Daniel could. So what we got then, we got a couple interesting things going on here, a little bit weird. First, we've got this great big tree, massive tree. Now, I've seen some big trees. I've even cut down some pretty big trees, sometimes with an axe, sometimes with a chainsaw. I definitely prefer a chainsaw, but you'll see some big trees. You've got a few big trees here in North Dakota, like some of your ash trees or your elm trees. If you're from California, or if you've been to California, perhaps you've seen some of the California redwoods, which are big, massive trees. They can be like 100 feet around and stuff like that. I mean, big trees. Well, however big a trees we've seen, this tree was bigger. The height thereof was so tall that Nebuchadnezzar couldn't really see the top of it. It says the height thereof reached unto heaven. So it reached up so high, he could barely see the top, if he could see the top at all. And it was big, it was tall, it was strong. The limbs, the boughs spread out through all the earth, as it says. So, I mean, this tree stretched out a long way. Normally, you don't see a tree that can stretch out its branches much more than 100, maybe 150 feet, but this tree, not only was it tall, but it was long. And not only was it tall and long, but it was strong. It was a strong tree. You know, one of the things we have around here, especially with some of the wind we have, is we'll have trees getting blown down, and then you look inside them and you find that they were half rotted out on the inside. Well, that was not the case with this tree. And how do you know that? Well, it goes on to say that it had good, healthy leaves. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof was much. So the leaves were good, they were healthy, they looked big and green and stuff like that. And the fruit that the tree produced was massive, and there was a lot of it. Everything fed off of it. All the beasts of the field, all the animals, all the birds of the air. Not only did they feed off of this tree, they lived off this tree. They lived near this tree. They lived under this tree or in this tree. It says that the fowls of the heavens dwelt in the boughs thereof. And the boughs, they're these big limbs that come off the trunk. I mean, they can be massive, something like this, you know, and just massive. Big tree, lots of shade, lots of food. And then this watcher from heaven. And what is a watcher? Well, that's something we're going to be looking at a little bit later, probably next week. But a watcher from heaven comes down and basically says, destroy this tree, but leave the stump. I mean, just completely obliterating it. It's like, why would you want to do that? I mean, this is a good tree. It's helping out the animals and stuff like that. Why would you want to do that? But it's interesting, and you can kind of start to see a little bit of the interpretation here. If you look in verse 15, it says, nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, and in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion, there you see the change there. It goes from talking about an object, the stump, to talking about a person. And let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from a man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand of the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. So here's what we can determine right now. There's more that we're going to be looking at some other time. But he had this weird dream with this great big massive tree. Then this watcher, whatever a watcher is, comes down and demands that this tree gets destroyed. And it goes from talking about a tree to then talking about a person. A weird transition there. Why would they go from talking about a tree to talking about a person? Well, you can go ahead and maybe read on a little bit more if you like and see what exactly they're talking about. But I will tell you this. That tree is a specific person that they're referencing, and that specific person has quite a lot of change coming their way. So with that, I'll go ahead and close off. Thank you for being here. I hope you tune in again next time, and we'll look more at what happens to this tree or this person. Thanks again. Be safe.
Welcome back, kids. Now we're gonna sing the B-I-B-L-E. The B-I-B-L-E. Yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God. The B-I-B-L-E. Bible! The B-I-B-L-E. Yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God. The B-I-B-L-E. Bible! The B-I-B-L-E. Yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God. The B-I-B-L-E. Bible! God's holy word. The B-I-B-L-E. Yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God. The Bible!
I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, seeking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me. All my heart to Him I give, ever to Him I'll cling. In His blessed presence live, ever His praises sing. Love so mighty and so true merits my soul's best song. Faithful, loving service to Him belong. Love lifted even me, love lifted even me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me, love lifted even me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help. Love lifted me.